Episode 1. She didn't scream. They found her in the middle of the road. Naked, hair scorched, skin unburned. It was Officer Elkins who saw the girl first, walking barefoot through the early fog of Route 9. Her eyes weren't crying. They were dry, hollow, as if she had already said goodbye to the world. We thought she was a victim of arson, he would later say, but there were no flames, no matches, no gasoline, just heat, heavy, impossible heat. At the hospital, they scanned her for trauma. Her name, her address, her fingerprints, nothing matched. The doctors said she was in perfect physical health, save for a lingering body temperature of 118F. Yet she remained calm, like a corpse that refused to decay. I saw her that night. I wasn't supposed to be in that wing, but something God or something worse pulled me to her room. She looked at me and whispered a name I hadn't heard in 12 years. Jonah, that's my name. She had never met me. I'm sure of that. And yet, she knew. She told me not to turn the lights off. She told me they come when it's dark. And then she told me something I still can't shake. I wasn't born. I was lit. When the lights flickered, the temperature dropped by 10 degrees. I smelled something like scorched feathers and rust. And then I heard it, a soft, whispering crackle, like fire. But reversed, cold fire. Nurses ran in when I screamed. But by then, she was sitting upright in her bed, staring, not at them, at me. As they pulled me out of the room, she smiled, not a girl's smile, a survivor's. And from the hallway, I saw the first sign, a black mark etched onto the floor under her feet. A perfect spiral, burned into ceramic. No smoke, no flame, just a whisper of ash. This is not just a story. This is the first page of something ancient, something that's waking up. Because that girl, the one who burns without fire, didn't just survive something, she's something. And she's not alone. Episode 2. The spiral beneath her skin. I didn't sleep after that night. Not really. You don't sleep after something like that. You drift, eyes closed, but your soul pacing behind them, watching shadows move in corners that never had corners before. At 3:12 I found myself back outside her hospital room. I told myself I was checking on a patient. I told myself I was being professional, but the truth is, I needed to see her again. The door was ajar. The light above her bed flickered like a candle in a hurricane, and she was sitting upright, tracing something invisible onto her forearm with her fingertip. Over and over again, a spiral, that same damn spiral I saw burned into the hospital floor. Who are you? I whispered. She looked up slowly, like she had to climb back from somewhere far away to notice me. Her eyes weren't dead tonight. They were alive with something worse than death. Memory. I was meant to be fire, she said softly, but something went wrong. They caught me halfway. Who caught you? The ones in the smoke. They don't like when we leave. I took a step back. The lights dimmed as if in response. I could feel it now, like heat pressing in from a furnace just behind the wall. My breath became steam. Her breath didn't. Do you want to see it? She asked. See what? The part of me that never healed. And before I could speak, she pulled her hospital gown off her shoulder. What I saw wasn't a wound. It wasn't a burn. It was a brand. A black spiral etched beneath her skin, alive with a dull red glow, pulsing, like it was breathing. I didn't want to believe it, but my gut did. My gut screamed at me to burn the memory from my eyes. But I couldn't move. And then she said something that changed everything. You have it too, Jonah, just not on the outside. I backed away. She tilted her head. You don't remember the field, do you? She whispered. The night your mother screamed and no one came. The night the sky turned red without fire. My knees buckled. How could she know that? I never told anyone. Not my father, not my therapist, not even God. That's when I realized she hadn't been found. She had returned, and something followed her back. Episode 3. The Red Sky Memory. You think you've buried a memory deep enough. It can't breathe anymore, but some things don't die. They just wait. And when she said it healed, the screaming, the red sky felt it move inside me again. That night I had spent 2 decades convincing myself was just a dream. Except it wasn't. And now she was here, dragging it back to the surface with her branded skin and dead girl smile. I drove home in silence, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Outside, the rain was falling slow and steady. But when I pulled into my driveway, it stopped. All at once. No drizzle, no wind, just silence. I stepped out of the car and noticed something strange. Ash. Tiny black flakes drifting from the sky in snow. Not soot, just ash, falling without fire. I looked up, and for a moment just one heartbeat I saw it again. A sky not black, not gray, but bleeding red. like an open wound stretched across the heavens. Exactly like I remembered, exactly like she described. Then it vanished. Sky went back to its quiet, moonless self, but the ash remained, covering my car, my doorstep, my hands. Inside, I went straight to the attic, a place I hadn't dared enter in years. Dusty boxes, broken lamps, forgotten grief. The one box was taped twice, wrapped in a plastic sheet, my mother's old belongings. I tore it open, photographs spilled out, birthday parties, Sunday picnics, and then I found it, a drawing, crumpled, torn at the edges. I must have made it when I was a child, shaky crayons and frantic lines. But it was clear, a spiral, a girl with no face, a red sky above a burning field, written in the corner. She came from the heat without fire. My handwriting, my memory, no explanation, just a truth I had forgotten how to scream. The phone rang downstairs. I let it ring once, twice. On the third, I picked up. No one spoke, but I could hear. It's soft, almost beautiful, like someone whispering a lullaby in reverse. Then a voice, barely audible. They know you remember now. Click. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was afraid of her, but because I was afraid of what else might return now that she had come back. She burned without fire, but I was starting to think, maybe I was the one who lit her. Episode 4, Voices in the Spiral. The morning after the ashfall, I found a mark on my chest. Not a bruise, not a rash. A spiral, faint, like something traced in frost. But there, real, pulsing slightly beneath the skin like an echo of hers. I stared at it in the mirror, breath fogging the glass. It didn't hurt, but it throbbed, as if whispering in a language my blood still remembered. And when I closed my eyes, I heard them, voices, hundreds of them, speaking in unison, not yelling, not screaming but chanting, a hum from somewhere deep beneath everything. Words I didn't understand but knew. She was not born. She was ignited. I went back to the hospital, room 6BS. She wasn't there. I asked the nurse. Discharged. She said, sign herself out just after sunrise. That's impossible. She had no name, no records, no hood. I checked the file. Blank. Only one word typed in the notes field. Returned. Returned to where? Returned to what? As I walked out of the hospital, I noticed something odd. The same symbol spiral spray painted in red on a nearby wall. Not sloppily, carefully, precisely. It looked old and fresh at the same time. I kept walking, past alleyways, parking lots, mailboxes, and every few blocks, another spiral. Bigger, sharper, almost glowing in places. It wasn't random. Someone or something was marking a path, and I was following it. The trail led me to an abandoned greenhouse at the edge of town. I hadn't been there since I was 10. It used to be a sanctuary. My mother brought me here the night before she died. The doors were wide open. Inside, cracked glass, overgrown vines, a stench of wet dirt and something metallic. At the center of the greenhouse, in a circle of scorched earth, stood her, hair loose, feet bare, eyes closed, and around her, drawn in the soil, was a massive spiral, 10 feet wide, burned into the floor with no source of flame. She spoke without looking. Do you remember now? I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I did. I remember the dream, the real dream, the one I had forgotten on purpose. A child's body, a ring of fire, my hands reaching through the heat, not to save her, but to call her. I fell to my knees. My chest burned. The mark glowed brighter now, visible even through my shirt. She finally opened her eyes, and what I saw inside them wasn't human. It was ancient, feral, celestial. You didn't find me, Jonah, she said. You summoned me. Episode 5, The Prayer in the Ashes. I didn't summon her. I couldn't have. I was only a boy. But there she stood in the heart of a spiral burned into earth. Ash swirling around her bare feet like obedient smoke, and I knew she wasn't lying. Not completely. Some part of me had called her. You think this is new, she whispered. But it's not. I stared at her. Every hair on my arms raced. The air around us wasn't hot or cold. It was charged, like breathing the air between thunderclaps. She crouched, dragging her finger through the spiral. It didn't smudge. It pulsed. You prayed, Jonah, and something answered. Not God, not hell, something in between. I wanted to deny it, but the memory was blooming now, sharp and hot behind my eyes. The field, my mother, coughing blood, me, crying in the dark. Please, I had whispered, take her pain, give it to me, burn it out of me if you have to. I had meant it metaphorically. Something didn't. You burned, she said, on the inside. What are you? I asked. Her smile vanished. I was never meant to be flesh. I was voice, flame. shape, but your prayer twisted me. You're saying I made you. You gave me form. You gave me limits. You gave me pain. Suddenly, the greenhouse windows trembled. A wind began to circle the spiral, but no leaves moved. No dust lifted, only the sound of the wind. Backwards, like it was being pulled inward. They felt it too. She said, the ones who were left behind when I escaped. They know where I am now, and they're coming for you. She looked at me. For us. I took a step back, my head pounding. The spiral on my chest began to itch. No burn. I clawed at my shirt, gasping. Then her hand touched mine, and everything stopped. The pain, the noise, the air itself seemed to freeze. She leaned close, her breath warm against my ear. You lit the match. Jonah, now you have to carry it. I stared at her, shaking. Why me? Because you asked to be emptied, and they always come for the hollow ones. Then she placed something into my palm, a strip of charred paper. I unfolded it, my childhood handwriting, faded, shaky. It read, if someone must burn, let it be me. The spiral beneath us began to glow, and from somewhere far, far below, I heard them again, the voices, getting closer, crawling up from the dark. Episode 6, they whisper through the walls. That night, I nailed my windows shut. It didn't help. They still came, not with footsteps, not with knocking, but with sound. It started just after midnight, a soft static in the walls, like an old TV set left on in another room. Faint, familiar, wrong. I pressed my ear to the plaster, and I swear to whatever still listens hear them. Whispers, down scenes, maybe hundreds, not speaking words, repeating my name over and over. 1,000 versions of Jonah, slithering beneath the drywall, curling through the pipes, trickling from the vents like steam from a bleeding wound. I backed away. The spiral on my chest began to itch again. I opened the kitchen drawer and grabbed a knife. Useless, I knew, but holding it made me feel like I had some say in what came next. That's when the lights went out. Total darkness. Not city darkness like the soft blue hush of distant traffic or moonlight. This was absolute, like someone had erased the room. And then, the voice, not hers, deeper, broken, like something speaking with a mouth it had borrowed from a dead man. You cracked the gate. Jonah, I turned, knife raised, nothing. She's flame, but you are the matchstick. Then came the scratching, not at the door, from inside the walls, and the sound of breathing, heavy, wet. Something was moving inside the house but not walking. A slight aim, I ran, basement stairs, slammed the door behind me, locked it, but the breathing was already there. In the corners, behind the boiler, inside my ears. I crouched behind the old furnace, knife shaking in my hand. Then something moved in front of me, just a flicker at first. A figure, a girl, hair burned to the root, skin flickering like embers, spiral glowing on her shoulder. It was her, except not. This one smiled with no lips, and when she opened her eyes, they were full of ash. Not all of us got out, she whispered. I launched with the knife. She vanished in smoke. Then I heard the real voiceo from the top of the stairs. Jonah, don't let them touch you. I ran up, kicked the basement door open. She was there, the real one, panting, barefoot, hands shaking. They breached. The old prayers aren't holding anymore. What do they want? I asked, gasping. Her eyes locked onto mine. You, why me? Because you're the one who believed. And now they need belief to break through. Outside, the world had changed. The streetlights was blood red, ash swirled like snow. And in the distance, at the edge of the tree line, they stood, tall, still, watching, waiting. Episode 7, the ones who wait in stillness. They didn't move. That's what made it worse. At the edge of the woods, where the trees start to forget their names, they stood in a perfect line, not breathing, not blinking, human-shaped but not human, some tall, some broken, all still, and though they had no faces, I could feel them staring, waiting. She said they wouldn't come here. I whispered. The girl beside me didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the tree line. Her fingers twitching like sparks were trapped beneath her skin. They weren't supposed to follow. She murmured, they never cross into the place of breath. But something changed. Something you did. May, you remembered. She knelt in the street and pressed her hand against the asphalt. The spiral on her shoulder flared, glowing like molten glass. Within seconds, the pavement beneath her palm cracked and burned. Smoke coiled up in silence. Then she drew in another spiral. But this one was different, jagged, incomplete. Help me finish it, she said. I don't know how. You do. You did it once. In the field, you were 5. Your blood opened a door. The wind shifted. The figures in the trees took a step forward all at once. Not walking, gliding, soundless. Wrong. My knees buckled. The spiral on my chest ignited like someone had taken a match to my ribs. I collapsed beside her, clutching my chest. She grabbed my hand, forced it into the burning spiral she'd drawn. My skin hissed, pain exploded behind my eyes. Suddenly, I wasn't in the street anymore. I was in the field, my mother screaming, the red sky, me kneeling injured, drawing spirals in the soil with my own blood, and her, not the girl I knew now but the first spark of her, floating above the earth, reaching toward me with flame where fingers should be. I saw it now, clear as the fire. I didn't summon her, I freed her from something worse. I snapped back. The street, the night, the girl gripping my hand like it was the only thing keeping her real. And then we heard it from the trees, from the mouths of those weighing things. You don't belong to the light. You broke the silence. You are the breath in the flame. Then came the sound. Screaming, not from them, from beneath them, as if something older, something chained, was being pulled upward through their stillness. The girl stood, face pale, voice steady. We don't have much time. What's coming? She looked me dead in the eyes. The first one, episode 8, the first one rises. The sky didn't just darken, it collapsed. Clouds cracked open like skin torn to tight. Light bled upwards instead of down. And the air began to hum, as if every molecule was reciting an ancient name no living throat should ever speak. The grimy girl of ash and spirals died in her grip on my arm. Don't speak, she whispered, not even in your thoughts. Yet here's prayer. The figures at the tree line knelt as one, not in worship, in surrender. And then it came. First, a shape in the mist, then a stench like burned salt and rusted bone. Finally, a sound like 1,000 matches striking with stone all at once. And from the space between trees taller than trees, it stepped out. The first one, it didn't walk. It bent space with each movement, like the world didn't agree with its existence. Its body was wrapped in layers of shadow that peeled and twisted like smoke trapped in ice. Faces flickered across its skin, some crying, others screaming, all recognizable. One of them was mine. I staggered back. No, I whispered, but it turned to me, and when it looked, everything inside me curled. Every lie I had ever told, every fear I thought I'd buried. It didn't speak, but I understood. You opened the gate, now burn in the light behind the fire. The girl stepped between us. Her spiral glowed like a dying star, and she did something I hadn't seen her do before. She knelt, not out of fear, out of remembrance. I was the flame you forgot, she whispered, but I remember you. The first one paused, and the sky shook. That's when I realized they weren't strangers. This thing, this God, this one that walked, it knew her, because it had made her, long ago, before flesh, before language, when fire still had a will. She stood again, her body quivering with heat and memory. The spiral on my chest flared in response, and I felt something rise inside me. Not fear, not rage, but flame, ancient, familiar. Something passed between us and me and her without a word, a memory, a promise, a spark. Run, she said, without turning. I'm not leaving you. This isn't about me anymore. You're the second fire. And then she stepped forward, toward the first one, and as their shadows touched, the world screamed. Episode 9, the second fire. When their shadows touched, the earth didn't shake, it sank. Reality folded inward, like some ancient wound finally reopening. The air went thin, time stuttered, and for a moment, everything felt wrong. Like we had all just stepped off the edge of creation. She stood before the first one, arms raised, spiral glowing white hot across her chest. The creature loomed over her, tall enough to blot out the stars. Faces writhed along its body, whispering prayers in reverse, repeating forgotten names that tasted like ash on my tongue. You were never meant to return, it said. You are a broken spark. You are the girl who would not burn right. She didn't flinch. You tried to silence me, she said, but you taught me how to scream. And then she did something I'd never seen her do. She breathed out. Not air, fire, but not normal fire. This flame was pale blue, almost translucent, like the memory of heat rather than heat itself. It danced across the space between them and coiled around the first one like a noose. The creature reeled, shrieking it in pain, but in recognition. She was its failure, and its mirror. I should have run, she told me to, but I couldn't move, because as I stared at her, I felt something stir in me. The spiral on my chest pulsed no longer burning, but calling, and in that moment, I knew she wasn't the only one made from prayer. I was, too, not from faith, but from desperation. My mother's last breath, my first scream, the night sky turning red in a field soaked with grief. The first one turned to me, Its voice dropped to a whisper that broke the bones of the wind. We gave you silence, and you answered with flame. Suddenly, my legs buckled. Heat surged through my spine, like lightning made of memory. I cried out, collapsing to the ground. But the girl caught me, her hand on my chest. You're not hollow anymore, she said. You're kindling. And then she pressed her forehead to mine, and everything changed. I saw everything. The spiral's origin, the ones who came before, the children made of heat and sorrow, given life in secret prayers, gods born not in heaven, but in fear, and among them, me, the second fire, not to destroy, but to remember, to ignite. When I opened my eyes, the first one was screaming, its form unraveling face by face pulled apart by the light we now shared. The girl turned to me, eyes blazing like twin suns. Say the word, she whispered, the one you spoke as a child. I remembered, the night in the field, my blood, my whisper, bird, and when I spoke it again, the world obeyed. Episode 10, the word that burned the world. I said it, not loud, not desperate, not like a scream. I whispered it like a secret coming home. Bird, and the sky listened. Flame didn't fall, it rose. It bled upward from the cracks in the ground, pouring like molten truth from the bones of the earth itself. The spiral beneath my feet lit up in white fire, ancient and pure, wrapping around us like a crown of light. The first one staggered. For the first time, it looked afraid. This is not your right, it hissed. You were made to remember, not command. The girl stood beside me now, not as something broken but as something forged. Her body flickered like a flame dancing between realities, and in her eyes, I saw not just pain, but purpose. He remembered what you made him forget, she said, and now we remember together. The ground buckled, light pierced the clouds, every spiral across the town from the walls. The pavement, the skin of the market blazed, and the figures at the tree line, gone, not dead, evaporated, as if they never belonged here to begin with. The first one held and reached toward us, its arms becoming storms, its face unraveling into static. But it was too late. I stepped forward, flame radiating from my chest, and I understood what I was now. Not a victim, not a prophet, but the continuation of the fire she started. Your silence ends here, I said, and I touched it, the first one. For a split second, I saw everything it had ever devoured, the prayers it twisted, the names it unmade, the voices it silenced. Then the fire moved through me, through us, and the first one shattered, not like glass, like smoke punched through by light. Its form scattered into the void, screaming a sound that wasn't sound, until there was nothing left but a faint glow curling through the spirals like a final breath. The girl fell to her knees. I caught her. She was smiling. You did it, I said. She shook her head. We did. Her body was dimming now, the glow fading, the spiral on her shoulder slowly turning to dust. You were never meant to carry me forever, she whispered. I was only here to wake you up. Tears welled in my eyes. So this is goodbye, only from the outside. And then, with a final touch to my chest, she vanished into light. A flicker, a warmth, a memory. I stood alone in the street. Ash drifted quietly down again, but this time, it didn't sting. It felt soft, like snow from another world. The sky returned to blue, the spirals dimmed, and the silence that followed was not hollow. It was peace, but deep down, I knew, somewhere, far beyond the veil, others were still waiting, and they would come looking for the second fire. But when they do, I won't be afraid, because now, I burn too. Episode 11, Ashes That Remember. A week passed, no ash, no whispers, no spirals, just silence, but not the kind that hides monsters. This silence was earned, a quiet left behind after a storm forgets how to roar. I tried to go back to life, whatever that meant. Coffee tasted normal again. My hands stopped shaking. I even smiled. One seat the way sunlight hit the floor through my apartment. Blinds like golden threads woven by something divine. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Because some things don't end, they wait. It started with the mirror. I was brushing my teeth when I saw it. Not my reflectioners. Standing behind me, eyes glowing faintly. No body, just flame in the shape of memory. I spun. Nothing. But when I looked back, there it was. A spiral, drawn in condensation on the mirror surface. Fresh, alive. That night, the dream returned. Not the field, not the scream. This time I was in the spiral itself, walking it like a path. Each step took me deeper, not underground but into myself. Into pieces of memory I hadn't lived, voices I'd never spoken, but that sounded like mine. At the center stood her, not the girl, not the flame, something new. You left the fire, she said, but the fire didn't leave you. Then why am I dreaming this? because they started praying again. I awoke in sweat, checked my chest. The spiral was back, not glowing, not burning, but black, inked, permanent. I knew what it meant. They weren't done with me. The next day, I drove out to the edge of town, to the field. The field. Nothing had grown there in decades. The grass never returned. The soil remained gray, like it had been kissed by something that hated life. I stood at the center, waited, and then I heard it, not from below, from above. A hum, a shimmer. The sky began to ripple like glass, holding back something vast. And from it, a voice, but not hers, not the first one. Jonah, we are the third fire, and we are not born, we are sent. Then the ground beneath my feet split open, a crack in the spiral, no heat, just darkness. But I wasn't afraid, because this time, I knew, I wasn't being haunted, I was being summoned. Episode 12, The Third Fire. The crack in the ground didn't lead downward, it led inward, as if the spiral beneath me wasn't just a symbol but a door carved into the skin of the world. I should have been terrified, should have run, but I didn't. Because when the voice spoke, we are the third fire, something inside me responded. Not fear, not obedience, recognition. I stepped into the spiral. The moment my foot crossed the crack, the world bent, sound bled in reverse, light flickered like hymnlight in drowning water. My breath became heavy, like I was inhaling memory, and then I was through, no longer in the field, no longer on earth. It was a chamber of sorts, circular, infinite, carved from obsidian flame. The walls were alive or rippled with fire trapped in glass. Each flicker a face, a story, a screen frozen in time. At the center, a throne, empty but pulsing, like it was waiting for me. You came, said a voice, not hers, not the first one, but something older, wiser, and more dangerous. A figure stepped forward, draped in robes woven from smoke and bone. No eyes, just spirals, spinning slowly where a face should be. The girl was the ember, it said. The first one was the spark. But you are the flame that chooses. Chooses what? I asked. Whether the fire heals or devours. Around me, the chamber began to echo with voices. Not hostile, not kind, just true. I heard my childhood prayers, my mother's last breath, her voice in the field, whispering, he's not ready. And then the fire being stepped aside, revealing the throne again. Empty, but now I saw it wasn't a seat. It was a mirror, and in it, I saw myself as I was, but as I could become. Ash falling from my fingertips, light blooming from my spine, a crown of spirals, eyes like stars. Not Jonah, something else. You brought her back. The being said, you banished the first one, but that was only the beginning. There are others, locked in silence, waiting for the next fire to rise. And if I refuse, I asked. The chamber grew still. The flames on the walls turned black. Then the silence returns. Forever. I stepped toward the mirror, and for the first time, I didn't see a victim. I saw purpose. I raised my hand and touched the glass. It didn't feel cold. It felt familiar. And in that instant, the chamber ignited. Light tore through the darkness, and the being whispered, then rise, bearer of the third fire. I woke up in the field, lying in the center of the spiral. But something was different. The sky wasn't red. The ground wasn't cracked. It was growing, green, alive. And on my palm, burned into flesh, was a new mark. Not a spiral, but a sun. Episode 13, where fire becomes light. The sun in my palm wasn't just a mark. It beat, like a second, heart quiet, ancient, and waiting. The spiral had always meant memory, echo, a loop of pain that never ended. But this symbol, this was something else. A break in the spiral, a beginning. I stood in the middle of the field that once birthed screams and silence. Now it bloomed, grass, alive. The soil no longer gray, but golden, as if the land itself had been washed clean in fire and allowed to breathe. And still no sign of her, not a trace, only her memory, burning soft behind my ribs. I spent days wandering, guided by instinct. No map, no signs, only the faint pull of warmth beneath my skin, a path carved into me by something I no longer feared. The fire was part of me now, and it was listening. On the third day, the sky tore open again violently, not with wrath, but gently, like paper being unfolded, and from it stepped her. Not the same girl, not entirely. Her body shimmered like heat over stone. She wore light like a veil. Her spiral was gone. In its place, the sun, glowing on her forehead. She smiled. You came back? I whispered. I never left. She said, you just stopped looking inside. She walked toward me, and with each step, the grass bowed not in fear, but in reverence. I reached for her hand. It was warm, solid, real. I saw the throne. I told her, I saw what they want me to become. They don't want anything. She said, you are the one who must decide what the fire becomes now. And if I fell, she turned, looking to the horizon where shadows still stirred. Then silence will return, and this time, it won't end. Suddenly, I felt them again. The Watchers, the Forgotten, not evil, just hollow. They gathered at the edge of the fieldland, faceless, waiting, not to attack, but to be chosen, to be given fire. I understood then, they weren't monsters, they were abandoned prayers, and I had become the flame that could answer them. I looked at her, she nodded. Say it. I took a deep breath, and for the last time, I spoke the word that had always burned behind my lips. Live. Light poured from my hands, from my chest, from my eyes. Not fire that devours, but fire that remembers, that remakes. Each Watcher bathed and it transforms Pearl's fame. Suns igniting, not gods, not demons, just awakened souls. And in that light, I saw her smile. Not the girl I met in the hospital, not the ghost in the spiral, but the one who had been waiting all along. Me. The field became a sun. The silence broke, and the fire, at last, found peace.